There is one last story you tell yourself. It's the one you whisper in the dark when everything else has fallen away. After, the bad day at work, after the argument with someone you love, after you look in the mirror and don't recognise the person staring back. It's your final defence. It usually starts with the words, at least. At least I'm a good person. At least I'm honest. At least I try hard. At least I'm not like them. It feels like a lifeline, doesn't it? The one solid thing you can hold on to when the waves are crashing over you. We all have one. It's the foundational belief upon which we've built our entire identity. We think it saves us. We believe it is our strength, the core of our character. But what if it's not a lifeline? What if it's an anchor? An anchor feels safe. It holds the ship steady in a storm, preventing it from being smashed against the rocks. But an anchor also prevents the ship from sailing. It holds you in one place, in one tiny corner of a vast open ocean of possibilities. And most of us have been anchored in the same harbour for years, even decades, mistaking the feeling of being held in place for the feeling of being safe. This final illusion, this "at least I am" story, is the most powerful mechanism we use to keep ourselves from changing. Because to change means to lift the anchor, and that is terrifying. It means drifting. It means facing the unknown. So we keep the story. We polish it. We defend it. We build our lives around proving it's true. This happens in a very specific place, the courtroom inside your own mind. Think about it. You are constantly on trial, and you're the only one in the room. You are the judge, the jury, the prosecutor, and the defense attorney. Life brings in the evidence every day. A conversation goes wrong, a project fails, someone misunderstands your intentions. The evidence piles up on the prosecutor's table. See? You weren't very kind there. See? You gave up too easily here. See? You weren't completely honest in that moment. And just when the evidence seems overwhelming, your inner defense attorney stands up and delivers the closing argument. It's always the same speech. Yes, Your Honour, all of that may be true, but at least my client is a fundamentally good person. Or at least my client always has the best intentions. And you, the judge, slam down the gavel. Case dismissed. You find yourself not guilty of being flawed, of being human, of being something other than the perfect image you hold of yourself. You get to walk out of the courtroom feeling justified, and the anchor stays right where it is. This mechanism isn't malicious. It was designed for survival. It helped you make sense of a confusing world when you were younger. It protected a fragile sense of self, but you are no longer that person. The world is no longer that confusing. The way things are set up, these old survival habits eventually become cages. The very thing that once protected you now limits you. The architecture of your reality is built upon this one central assumption, this one story, and the entire structure will not allow anything in that contradicts it. You won't see opportunities, you won't hear feedback, you won't recognise connections that fall outside the blueprint of your, at least I am, identity. But then, something begins to shift. It's never a loud explosion. It's a quiet, unsettling feeling. It's the anchor, starting to slip. It starts with a tiny crack in your closing argument. You tell yourself, at least I'm a patient person. And then you find yourself filled with irrational rage at the slow person in front of you at the grocery store. The justification doesn't work as well. feeling of not guilty doesn't come so easily. Or you pride yourself on being self-sufficient. And then you feel a wave of desperate loneliness, so profound it physically hurts. You tell your friends, I'm not a materialistic person, but then you spend hours scrolling online, filling a digital shopping cart with things you don't need, feeling a hollow ache that the purchases can't fill. These are not moral failings. They are signals. They are reality gently tapping on the window of your inner courtroom. It's the network of life showing you a mismatch. It's saying, the story you're telling yourself is no longer aligned with what is actually happening. The first few times this happens, we double down. We argue our case even more fiercely. We find more reasons to prove our story is true. We blame other people. We blame the circumstances. We do anything to avoid looking at the simple fact that the anchor is dragging along the seabed. That quiet panic begins to set in. It's the dawning suspicion that your final justification, your one last illusion, might not be true. And the question that follows is the most terrifying one of all. If I am not that, then what am I? This is the moment the transformation begins. Not when you have the answer, but when you can no longer ignore the question. It's the first ray of light entering a room that has been sealed shut for a very long time. It's uncomfortable. It's blinding at first. But it is the beginning of actually seeing. This is not about destroying yourself. It's about letting go of the one story that prevents you from discovering who you truly are. It's about realizing that anchor was never a lifeline. It was just a very, very old habit. And the universe, the way everything works, has a funny way of loosening our grip on these things. It sends people, situations, and feelings that press right on that central illusion, not to break you, but to show you where the chains are. If your story is, I am strong and I don't need anyone, you will find yourself in situations where you are forced to ask for help. If your story is, I am smart and always right, you will be confronted with your own profound ignorance over and over again. These aren't punishments, they are gifts. They are guideposts, showing you the way out of the harbour. The real journey can't begin until you are willing to sail. And you can't sail while you're still telling yourself that the anchor is the most important part of the ship. The quiet dread you feel when the illusion starts to crack is actually the sound of your own freedom calling. It's the call to adventure you've been waiting for your entire life, disguised as the one thing you fear the most, uncertainty. But within that uncertainty lies every possibility you've ever denied yourself, every connection you've been too afraid to make, every version of you that's waiting to be born, just outside the comfortable, predictable, and suffocatingly small radius of that one last story. The slipping isn't a sign of failure. It's a sign that you're ready to see what lies beyond the horizon you drew for yourself so long ago, ready to face the open water. The feeling is unmistakable. It's the subtle but persistent vibration of a lie that has reached its expiration date. It's the cognitive dissonance between the script you're reading from and the life you're actually living. It's the exhaustion of holding up a mask, not for others, but for yourself. The architecture of reality is efficient. It doesn't support structures built on faulty foundations forever. Eventually, gravity always wins. The cracks appear not because you are weak, but because truth is stronger than any story we can build to contain it. The real you is trying to get your attention. It's asking you to finally put down the gavel, step out of the courtroom, and just look. Look at what is, without the filter of what you think it's supposed to mean. The beginning of liberation is that quiet, terrifying moment you look at your oldest, most cherished story about yourself and think, maybe that's not true anymore. And maybe that's okay, by the way. A shared space of light and awareness is on its way to 100,000 people. Thank you to everyone who subscribes and brings this moment closer. When that last story falls away, there is a moment of pure, undiluted terror. It's like standing naked in the middle of a crowded street. There's nothing left to hide behind, no alibi, no excuse. When you make a mistake, you can no longer say, but at least my intentions were good. You simply see the mistake and its consequences. When you act out of fear or jealousy, you can no longer tell yourself, but I'm a loving person deep down. You have to face the feeling as it is, raw and without a label. This is the moment most people run. They scramble to find a new story, a new costume, a new closing argument for their inner courtroom. They can't stand the emptiness, the feeling of being undefined. And so they trade one anchor for another. A slightly different model, perhaps, but an anchor all the same. But what happens if you don't run? What if, for just a minute, you stay with that feeling of being completely exposed? A strange thing begins to happen. After the initial wave of fear subsides, something else rises. It's a feeling of incredible lightness, a profound sense of relief. You begin to realise just how much energy it took to maintain that illusion. The constant vigilance, the endless gathering of evidence to prove your story was true, the mental gymnastics required to explain away any contradictions. It was a full-time job, and you were doing it 24 hours a day. Letting it go is like putting down a weight you didn't even know you were carrying. It's the feeling of taking off a tight, uncomfortable suit of armour after a long battle. You can finally breathe. You can move freely. The initial terror of nakedness gives way to the simple, unexpected joy of it. There's nothing to defend. There's no image to protect. There's no one you have to pretend to be, not even for yourself. You are just here, present to what is actually happening, not what your story says should be happening. This is the freedom of having no alibi. You are no longer a defendant on trial. You've left the courtroom entirely and walked out into the fresh air. This is where you discover what solid ground really feels like. All your life, your illusions were like standing on sand. It was soft, it was comfortable, it moulded to your feet, but you could never build anything on it. Every time a wave of reality came in, a criticism, a failure, a loss, the sand would shift, and whatever you tried to build would crumble. Your relationships, your career, your sense of self, they were all built on this unstable foundation, requiring constant rebuilding and reinforcement. Reality, on the other hand, is rock. When you first step onto it, after a lifetime on the sand, it feels hard, it feels cold, it might even hurt your feet. It doesn't yield. It doesn't care about your feelings or your stories. It just is. Your actions have consequences. Your words have impact. Your feelings are real weather patterns passing through you. There's no negotiation with this. This directness can feel brutal at first, but you quickly realise something profound. The rock doesn't shift. It is solid. For the first time, you have a place to stand, where the ground won't give way beneath you. You can build on this. A real life, an authentic connection, a genuine sense of purpose. These things can only be built on the unforgiving, unmoving rock of what is actually true. The comfort of sand is a trap. The stability of rock is true safety. So, what are you without your story? When you let go of the one who tries hard, or the misunderstood artist, or the responsible one, what is left? You discover something miraculous. You are not the story. You are never the story. You are the awareness that was watching the story unfold. You are the silent observer who is listening to the inner narrator spin these tales. Think of it like this. You are not the character in the movie. You are the screen on which the movie is projected. The characters, the good person, the victim, the hero, they come and go. They play their parts. But the screen remains, unchanged, untouched, aware of it all. This shift in identity is the core of all deep transformation. It's not about changing your story from a negative one to a positive one. That's just redecorating the prison cell. It's about realizing you are not the prisoner. You are the space in which the cell exists. This is not about becoming better. It's about becoming real. The whole idea of better implies a goal, a destination, another story to tell yourself about how enlightened you've become. The path of becoming real is much simpler and much harder. It's the path of subtraction, not addition. You let go of the stories. You let go of the justifications. You let go of the person you thought you were, and you simply rest in the quiet, empty awareness of who you actually are. And in that space, a new way of living emerges. It's not based on rules or ideals, but on a direct connection to the network of reality. When you need to make a decision, you don't consult your story about what a good person would do. You simply feel into the situation and respond to what is needed in that moment. Your actions become more precise, more effective, because they are born from reality, not from a concept. You start to notice the synchronicity, the coincidences that guide you. They were always there, but your story was too loud for you to hear them. Reality was trying to talk to you, but you were too busy with your closing argument. Now you can listen. You can see the patterns connecting everything. You realise that life isn't a problem to be solved or a trial to be won. It's a current to be navigated. And by letting go of the anchor of your last illusion, you have finally allowed yourself to join the flow. There is still fear, there is still pain, there is still uncertainty, but it's different now. It's not the suffocating fear of your story being proven wrong. It's the thrilling, alive fear of the unknown. It's the clean pain of a real wound, not the chronic ache of an old infection. It's the open uncertainty of the sea, not the static certainty of the harbour. You stop trying to control life, and instead, you learn to dance with it. You stand on real ground, and from that place, and only that place, you can finally begin to live. If this video changed something in you, write in the comments, "I stand on real ground." Write it as your promise. Nobody